mushroom risotto. Risotto has this prestige about it. Everybody thinks it's so difficult, so hard to do. It's not. The second hardest thing about this dish is finally chopping an onion. Little knob of butter in our pan with the onion. Wee bit of olive oil with that. Gotta cook the onions slowly. If they brown, you really gotta start over. It makes the entire thing bitter. Season that with salt. Porcini mushrooms, dried. They come like this. I like to take the hot water from my sink and I soak them in a bowl of water for about half an hour. Very simply. Get our hands in here, okay? Squeeze out the mushroom juice and move it to our bowl. Why dried mushrooms? Why not just fresh mushrooms? Because this liquid is so rich in mushroom flavor that it actually will become our broth. You can put it in a pot. I don't have enough to make it go in a pot, so I'm gonna put it in this little thing here. Okay, here's my broth, right here. We'll turn that up. I'm gonna take 2 cloves of garlic, I'm gonna mash them. 2 cloves of garlic in that. A little bit of salt. Heat that up. Texturally, the fresh ones help a lot. Big pieces, small pieces, doesn't really matter. You can see the onions have softened a little bit. We're gonna add in our fresh mushrooms. We're gonna add in our dried mushrooms. So a whole bunch of different kinds of risotto rice. We're gonna use arborio. Now I've come to the conclusion that 1/3 of a cup of risotto for one person is a ton. It doesn't look like much, it's a ton. It's really a lot. In fact, I'm gonna go under a little bit. I'm gonna use more like 1/4 of a cup. Maybe give it a little stir. And what you're just gonna give it a few seconds here, you want the rice to kind of turn opaque in color. It loses a little bit of the white, starts to become clear in some spaces. It's opaque. I have this garlic mushroom broth here. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna cover it. Don't want this to boil too hard because it can break up the grains of risotto. For the most part, we're just repeating the steps from here on out. Now I told you the second most difficult thing about this dish was chopping the onion. The most difficult thing about this dish is dressing up to look snobby enough so that your friends think that you're worthy of making a dish this good. Hence the hair. So now we're going to wait. Simultaneously, the broth that we've made, this is why I love this dish, because you don't have to use chicken stock. Simultaneously, the broth is evaporating and being absorbed into the rice. It usually takes between 3 and 4 cycles of this before it's done. We don't add the broth until this broth has fully reduced down to nothing. And you can tell by kind of moving it around in here. You see, it's actually almost ready for the next step of broth. A little taste. Ah, rich and delicious. Wow. Okay, we're ready for the next step of broth here. You know what? I'm not going to put the broth in. I'm going to put a little red wine. I find if you put the red wine at the end, it lingers around the flavor a lot more. I really want to use it more for color. So if I put the wine as the second stage and then 1 or 2 more broths, it'll be much more minute, less up front. Beautiful color. How much liquid? Well, enough to cover everything in the pan. That's it. Just enough to cover everything in the pan. If you do too much, it's going to take forever to reduce. It's going to take forever to reduce. It's always a good idea to try the wine that you've poured in there. White wine works well in here too. In fact, I've been doing it all week with white wine. The red wine gives it a little more color. Makes it seem like the deep forest. Rich in mushroom and garlic. I think it beats chicken stock, I gotta tell you. Okay, we're ready for another stir here, just to move it around, change the surface area. You can see that we're ready for the next stage of liquid. Look at how it's holding form nicely, not moving. Garlic mushroom broth. Just enough to fill it. It's times like these that I wish I had a nail file. I literally have nothing to do. Yeah, the risotto takes 25 minutes to cook, but you only have to touch it 4 times in that cooking time. I have to sit here, unfortunately. You can do other things. If you can remember not to forget about the risotto. All right, I'll give it a stir. Why? Because I got nothing else to do. Buonissimo. Based on that taste test, I can tell you that this isn't going to need another dose of broth. So mine, two broths, broth, wine, broth. In this case, you may need to go another. You have to try it. Some fresh pepper, just in at the end of cooking time there. Stir in a second little knobble of butter, just to give it a velvety finish. Our Parmesan cheese to add to the creaminess. A little bit at a time. It's very important you do this at the end. It takes all the liquid that remains and sort of coagulates it in a way so that it's a little bit firm. Oh, see how it's coming out? Nice and white looking. Beautiful. Okay, perfect. Now this was a 1/4 cup of risotto. Wait till you see how much comes out of this. Parsley. Lots of it if you like. I do. Decorate the outside with some balsamic. So now that we know the most difficult step of making the risotto, we can eliminate it altogether. Because the truth is, anybody can make this dish. And that's exactly why Frankie cooks, and you can too. I'm gonna eat mine with a spoon. Perfectly al dente. Only problem is it's 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm gonna crash real hard. Stay tuned, see you soon.